As the world looks for cleaner and greener energy sources, Australia is emerging as a leader in the field of hydrogen production. With vast potential for renewable energy, the nation is investing heavily in the development of hydrogen technology as a viable alternative to fossil fuels. And joining us now from the Australian National University to talk about the potential impact of a hydrogen future is Professor KEN BALDWIN. Professor Baldwin, welcome. How far advanced is Australia when it comes to transitioning to a hydrogen-fuelled economy?
I guess Australia's main advantage in the world hydrogen economy is that it's a potential producer and exporter of hydrogen. So there's a lot of work been done both on the research side and on the development side in creating an export supply chain. And indeed, Australia has shipped the very first liquid hydrogen shipment from Melbourne in Victoria to Japan as the very first part of this international supply of hydrogen from Australia. The domestic sector is yet to transition to hydrogen in any significant way. There are hydrogen-powered electric vehicles, but really the main game at the moment for Australia is in exports.
So some of those movements are happening, but can you explain some of the key challenges that we're facing?
Yes, well, it's very similar to the beginnings of the liquid natural gas industry 40, 50, 60 years ago. And the same problems arise. You need to create a demand for the commodity and to have the suppliers invest in infrastructure to supply that commodity at a price that is agreed by both sides. And setting up this international pricing arrangement is the very first step. And so pilot studies such as the one between Australia and Japan trying to establish the beginnings of this, but really what it needs is a major commitment from a particular nation or group of nations to buy hydrogen from Australia at a price that Australia can supply it, and this is really the big challenge.
So what steps needs to be taken for that to happen?
It'll need, I think, bilateral arrangements and potentially a market mechanism to allow price discovery to happen. And then, of course, in the background is the big gorilla in the room, which is the United States Inflation Reduction Act, which is looking to subsidise the production of green hydrogen to a level which makes it incredibly competitive internationally. And if the US exports hydrogen based on the IRA subsidy, it'll be very hard for countries like Australia and elsewhere in the world to compete in the international market. So that's another really big challenge.
What steps could be taken to try and counteract that?
Well, it'll be interesting to see whether indeed the US proceeds to export hydrogen that is subsidised at that incredibly low price, or whether it will actually be producing hydrogen for its own domestic purposes to start with, and then, as it did with natural gas, enter the international market further down the track. If that happens, then there is the opportunity for other countries to get in early, lower their costs, develop their industries rapidly based on other trading partners, and potentially when the US does enter the international trading market, either the IRA will have changed or other countries will be producing at low cost anyway. So that's the dynamic that needs to play out. And as I said before, it's all about creating demand and linking the demand up with supply.
So as well as those things needing to happen, what are the most promising kind of applications moving forward for hydrogen in the short and the long term in Australia?
Well, there's already a market for hydrogen as a feedstock in the chemical industry. So hydrogen combined with nitrogen from the atmosphere creates ammonia. Ammonia is used in fertilizers. It's used in explosives. There are other applications for hydrogen in the chemical industry as well. So there's already a ready market for hydrogen. And of course, pretty much most of the hydrogen these days is produced using fossil fuels, and in that process, greenhouse gases are emitted. So in the transition to renewable hydrogen, which is created via renewable electricity and water, there is an opportunity for renewable hydrogen to replace fossil fuel hydrogen in the existing market. On top of that, hydrogen can be used in electric vehicles using a hydrogen fuel cell to provide electricity for EVs. It can be burnt directly as a power source, for example, to supplement renewable energy at times when wind and solar are not operating. And this, for example, is the case in northern latitude countries, often in the winter when hydro is also not available due to frozen snow and water. So there is a role in electricity generation, a role in mobility and transport, a role in the chemical feedstocks that make products such as fertilizer, and there are other potential roles as well. But those are really going to be the main ones as we go forward in the energy transition.
Sounds like the possibilities are pretty much endless. But how would you address concerns about the cost and the safety of the production of hydrogen and the transportation?
Yes, well, the cost is the big issue, and the cost of renewable hydrogen in particular needs to come down quite significantly. It's currently the order of $5 or $6 a kilo in order to be competitive with the hydrogen that is produced using fossil fuels at a couple of dollars a kilo. So $2 a kilo US is kind of the goal for the renewable hydrogen. And that will happen as the learning rate of the renewable hydrogen production process comes down. And eventually, as we've seen with the cost of wind turbines and of solar cells, this comes down as you get more and more uptake of these technologies. So the same thing, I think, will happen with the electrolyzers that produce hydrogen, and we will find that over time, renewable hydrogen will be competitive with fossil fuel hydrogen. Of course, if you put a carbon price on fossil fuel hydrogen, it'll be much less competitive anyway. And in terms of safety, hydrogen, in some sense, has similar safety concerns to the liquid natural gas industry. You're shipping lots of gas around in liquefied form in big container ships, for example. You then load it into terminals, you then put it into gas pipelines. So there are safety issues around using natural gas already. Hydrogen, again, has similar safety issues. It's a smaller molecule, so it's easier to leak through very small pores in the storage and distribution networks. But by and large, you need to pay attention to safety with hydrogen in much the same way as you do with the natural gas industry.